All right, well, let's get started. I think Craig messaged me and he says he has a concept on Intensifier that would be great to go over. It's very helpful. I think I know people use it inappropriately for guns often because every time I read it, it's like, oh, I didn't know I couldn't do that, so on and so forth. So hopefully Craig will elucidate us on some of those other topics.
Sure. Let me pull some things up here quickly. So, let's see, I want to get some guns on the board just to talk about. Let's see.
Excuse me. Oh, right. This kind of came up in Mark's game as well. The one that he brought up a few weeks back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good topic.
Yeah, there was, I think Mark and I started a conversation. It was something that I can't remember what started it.
Hmm. Oh,
Just throwing some things up here.
wow. Holy crap. I guess so, huh?
Yeah, just,
The
just to compare.
whole
Just to
friggin'
compare.
German arsenal.
Yeah. Well, the Germans have a nice variety of guns to
Yeah, it's
look
true.
at.
True that.
All
Absolutely.
right. Let's that. Okay. Let's start out with basic definition of intensifier. So, after losing rate of fire, a gun or vehicle main armament may make one final attack. Okay? And when you do that, you add plus two the two hit DRM, and your breakdown number is lowered by two. Basic rules, everybody gets that. I don't think anybody's ever, perhaps you forget to lower the breakdown number, don't really pay attention to it, but everybody gets that part. But there are some nuances that some in particular that I forget all the time. And in looking at this, we discovered there's actually an error that will be corrected in the SK rulebook. And whenever MMP gets around to the next iteration of the SK rulebook that they're going to put out, but it's my understanding that it's currently being proofed and hopefully not far from release, just like the next journal or something. But so in rule 3.2.4, which is a really long rule, goes
Hmm.
on forever. Page 11, the middle column says a gun main armament, not support weapon, that has fired and lost rate of fire can still fire again once in the same phase by using intensifier. You mark it with an intensifier counter to indicate that it cannot fire again that player turn. As I said, plus two DRM. Um, guns main armament breakdown number is reduced by two, and then if you roll the original breakdown number, the gun is permanently removed. For the gun and for a vehicle, you put a recall counter on it
Hmm.
and have to leave. So now here's one thing that is often missed. A gun main armament with no rate of fire shown on its counter that changes its covered arc is marked with intensifier counter after that shot and cannot fire again that player turn. So I pulled one up here.
Yep.
So we've got this artillery gun here. It's got no rate of fire. If you change the covered arc and take a shot, you just get that one shot. That's intensifier. That's it.
You never see
And
that.
that's a rule. Yeah, and that's a rule that I have always overlooked. Um, but I was playing an opponent who was actually familiar with this, And here's where the error is in SK. I'm just going to pull up. So in SK, it specifically says a gun slash main armament with no rate of fire. Oh, wait a minute. That one's got a rate of fire.
Right.
Somewhere I know that there's a,
The Brumbar's a good one.
yeah, I don't know if you can find it quickly. So there is a vehicle with a main armament that does not have a rate of fire. Okay? And by the SK rule, says it's got no rate of fire, you change its covered arc, then it's marked with an intensive fire color.
Not a Brumbar, but
we
will be useful.
So there you go. So if make a covered arc change and fire, then intensifier count. That is not the ASL rule. And that is in fact an error in the SK rulebook.
Wow.
So if you're playing somebody, and it's like, okay, well, this is what the rule book says. It hasn't been updated yet by MMP, so that's what the rule says. But that eventually, when the update comes out, that will be modified to be just a gun with no rate of fire when you change a covered arc and it would not apply to a main armament on the vehicle.
Oh, right.
All right. So some other restrictions with intensifier. If you're pinned, you cannot intensify. If you're shocked or stunned, you cannot intensify. Intensifier cannot be used in the advanced fire phase, which is probably something I've made an error. I don't know if I've done it, but it's something that I hadn't really thought about it until I dug into this rule. And this was what was brought up in Mark's and my game, where if you're marked, you can use intensifier during the defensive fire phase versus an adjacent or same hex. Only versus an adjacent or same hex during the defensive fire phase. So not any further away. And I'm pretty certain that I've played where I've made that mistake in defensive fire. I've fired at an opponent that was not adjacent, and I've used intensifier. There are some weapons that specifically say no IF listed on the counter. So, and that goes with, when you're prepping to play, you want to look at yours as well as your opponent's weapons and note that if it's got no intensifier on it. And I can't remember if anybody's seen this. Is that typically on? That's usually on the front of the counter, so you don't miss it, right?
No, it's usually on the back.
Right.
It is on the back.
Yeah, it's on the back. Yeah, the most
Okay.
The likeliest candidate that SK players are going to run into is the Russian Joseph Stalin tanks.
Okay.
The big, heavy 122 millimeter gun.
Yeah.
Yeah, late war heavy Russian tanks. They have no IF.
Right.
Yeah. So that does make a difference. We're playing
yes.
last victory right now, so that makes a difference for me as the Russian.
Right.
My tanks don't get that. So go ahead.
Okay. So next item, a gun may also change its covered arc without firing. And this is going to be getting off just a little bit from intensifier, but still applies. So you can change your covered arc without firing at the end of a friendly fire phase, not movement phase. So if it's the end of prep fire phase, the end of advancing fire phase, the end of defensive fire phase, you can change your covered arc and not fire, but only if you can fire without using intensifier. And your manning infantry has not used its inherent firepower. So both the gun and its manning infantry then cannot move that player turn. So if you change your covered arc in the prep fire phase, but don't fire, then you can't move. All right. Let's see here. In the vehicle movement section, A turret covered arc and vehicle covered arc may also be changed without movement point expenditure as a result of firing outside the covered arc during any fire phase, other than its own movement phase, or at the end of any fire phase in which it's still eligible to fire turret bow mounted weapon without using Intensifier. So that goes back to the gun. Just the same rule for vehicles as for a gun. You can change your covered arc without firing as long as it doesn't not as long as you don't have to use Intensifier to fire if you were to try to attempt to fire. This is one that I probably, not that I use motion status attempt very often, but if you're marked with an Intensifier counter, you may not make a motion status attempt, right? It's also in there, it's first or final fire. So probably doesn't happen often. Most people realize that if you've marked your if you tried to fire your AFE, your main armament or something, then you know you can't make a motion status attempt, but Intensifier is in there as well. In the defensive first fire, and this is, I think this is the one that Mark and I struggled with and finally resolved correctly with Stu's help. A defender gun main armament already marked with a first fire counter may defensive fire again as Intensifier, regardless of the presence of closer enemy unit. Okay, so that's during the defensive first fire. Flip the first fire counter to its final fire side for the manning unit and all the weapon, and then place an Intensifier counter on the unit in this case. So you defensive first fire, and then you can final fire, but that's Intensifier with it. And then in the defensive fire phase, a gun or main armor marked with a first fire counter may Intensifier at units in an adjacent or same hex. And this is where Mark and I had to kind of go through when it said, marked, or in the rules it says already marked, and that's what kind of threw us off. So if you defensive first fire and then don't fire again, you don't Intensifier during the movement phase, and now it's a defensive fire phase, you can Intensifier against an adjacent unit. If you had not fired that gun or main armament during the movement phase as defensive first fire, then all you get is one shot. So if it's the defensive fire phase, you final fire, and then that's it. You don't get another Intensifier, even if the enemy is adjacent to you. So that's a quick rundown. I ran through the rules pretty quickly. And the reason that I pulled all these counters up there, because as I was going through this, a quick little quiz for people with all these guns, because I always forget what can and cannot. Which one of these guns here can be set up in a building? Who knows?
The 2-pounder AT gun, the 40 LL.
Okay, why?
Small gun,
Okay.
AT carriage.
Okay. So
any of the AT guns can be set up in building, right?
So small target guns can be set up in any small target gun can be set up in building. So that one can, this one. So we'll put them over here. Okay, these guys can be set up in buildings, right? Any small target. This AA gun, small target. All right. What else can be set up?
Hang on for a second, Craig. The RCL with the backblast, wouldn't that just toast anybody inside the building?
Yeah, it would. Yeah, it would.
Probably. That's a good question. I have to look at the.
Put the back up against a window.
Wouldn't that have a backblast?
I'd have to look at the
like
ordinance.
a bazooka.
I'd have to look at the ordinance notes
no
to see if there's
RCLs
something about it.
there's none of those in starter kit, right? I don't think you get recoil.
No, there are none. And the funny thing about the recoilless, just as a side note, they may not be set up and placed either for that same reason.
Okay.
Because the backblast recoilless rifles are extremely rare anyway. They're extremely rare. Most of the time, you'll see them as American support weapons, 57 millimeters or something like that. They're just rare. They're just rare.
Here, put this. Here's a small infantry gun rather than.
Yeah, that's good. That's a sweet one. That's one you'll see much more
All
often.
right, there we go.
Yeah.
Okay, so any small gun, small target can be set up in a building. What else can go in a building?
The anti-tank gun can, the 88 LS.
This one here. The
Oh, it's a large target though. Maybe not. No, the
Is
anti-tank
it?
gun can, because that one can. I was actually looking at the other one, but I had it wrong because the one that's a large target cannot. But that one,
This
correct?
one
'cause
cannot, right?
that's
Okay,
not a
so this
large.
is a no.
Yeah.
How about this one?
I'd say yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's a weird looking.
because it's not large, right?
Right.
Yeah,
How
it's an
about
anti-tank.
how about this gun, this artillery piece? It's not large. Can that
No.
go in a building?
No,
Why not?
because it's not an anti-tank gun or an infantry gun. Only an anti-tank gun or an infantry gun can go in a building as long as it's not a large target. All other guns have
Correct.
to be small targets.
Correct.
Correct.
Yep. So, and for the life of me, I can never remember anti-tank infantry, not large and everything else. Every time I have my guns in the order of battle, I have to look up the rule. But all right, so that's it.
So, question: if you've got an IFE weapon, and you want to intensifier, I presume you can't IFE then.
Sure, that would just be sustained
so-
fire.
Right, but there's no sustained fire in
Subsequent first fire then.
Correct. So if you're using IFE, you just treat that gun as though it were a machine gun.
Okay.
So, but you could say if you defensive first fire using IFE, and then you had, and then you'd be. Let me bring something up here quickly.
Bofors.
Pull this up here.
Yeah.
So let's say you got this. You first fired him using IFE, right?
Yep.
And now the American's thinking, I'll just, wander along here at my leisure because you first fired IFE. There's a closer unit, so you can't shoot at him, right? The German wouldn't be able to shoot at him. But what the German could do is, if you want the American player to get by scot-free, is you could intensifier as a gun rather than using the IFE. And then you are not restricted by firing at by this.
Okay.
You don't have to worry about a closer enemy unit.
All right. Either way, your breakdown goes down by 2, I think.
Absolutely. Yep. Either way, it goes down by 2. So in ASL, they use the term sustained fire. The effect is the same. I'm not sure why they chose to leave the term sustained fire out of SK. It's not like it's a complex concept.
Yeah.
No.
I've got a question for
there
you,
was
Craig.
one other thing I was going to think. Yeah, go ahead.
So what if you've got a non-qualified unit firing the gun and you use intensive fire? What's the malfunction and what's the breakdown number under those circumstances?
So the non-qualified, if you're firing any, non-qualified, is it reduced by 2 or is it reduced by 1?
2. 2 for
Reduced
non-qualified.
by 2. Yeah. How about captured?
Yeah, but I would guess what I'm getting at, which I think is interesting because I had to ask this, is what if you get they stack up? So you're using a non-qualified guy firing a gun as intensive fire. So both of those reduce your breakdown by 2. But the interesting thing here, I think, is they also both say that you replace your original breakdown with, it becomes an X number, right? Your original breakdown would actually break the gun permanently, right? So,
Right.
and the question is, does that stack up as well? And the answer I got was no. So you're actually, in this case,
Right.
if you remove the first fire marker, well, I guess it's a breakdown of 12 on that one, right? So your
Right.
mouth would then be 10-8, but your X number would still be 12. It would not go
It'd
down
still be
to
12.
10.
Yeah, and it all stacks up. If you have a conscript MMC that captures a gun and tries to fire it, all of those penalties are stacked up.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. And
But
bouncing. Oh, go ahead.
as you said, Steve, it's the removal number is not reduced in that case. The breakdown number is going to be down like 6.
Excuse me.
But if you roll the 12, that it's still going to be a 12 to remove. The other thing I wanted to bring up was mortars. Can you intensifier this 81 millimeter mortar? You lose rate of fire.
I want to say no,
Let's say
but
we'll have roll 2 hit. Look at that. It's Mark's roll there. He missed with the mortar. And he final fired. He's trying to get the Americans moving here. Can he intensifier? Anybody got a thought? Everybody's digging through the rolls.
yeah.
Digging.
So the answer is yes.
Okay. All right. Cool.
How about with this mortar? How about with a sport weapon mortar? You lose rate. Can you intensifier the sport weapon mortar?
Not a gun.
No. Yeah. Gun.
Right.
Now the question though is, can you, if you treat it like a sport weapon, if you lose rate on that, is it first fire and then you could subsequent first fire and lower the breakdown number like you could with a machine gun? I don't know the answer to that.
No.
I don't believe so.
That's just IFE and
Yeah, I
and
think so as
Yeah,
well.
machine guns.
I think you would put final fire on it, and pretty sure that's the answer to that.
Yeah. Yeah, the half-inch support weapons are not classified as guns. The 5/8 inch counters that have the ordnance, whether it be IFE or whatever, are classified as guns. And so that's one of the distinction that Craig was making, that needs to be corrected in the SK rulebook with regards to main armaments and guns. So a main armament may be a gun in terms of a 105 millimeter weapon, 20 millimeter weapon, or machine gun. But it's classified as a main armament versus a gun, which is a non-vehicular weapon. And so it makes a distinction between guns and main armaments. But I'm not sure if you said it earlier, but the subsequent fire from an IFE weapon may be done at range. There's no limitation to guns in quote intensive firing or subsequent firing from if they have IFE. So you don't necessarily have to use the 20 millimeter to hit. You could just fire your IFE equivalency at your subsequent target, and then you would then be marked with a final fire. There's still
Is that in fact? Is that in fact true? Because if you are using IFE, you have to follow all defensive fire mechanics.
right, but you're still a gun. You're treated as if
I've never played it that way, and the way I understood it was you do have to follow the if there's a near enemy unit, you cannot fire beyond if you're going to use the IFE.
But I don't know. I didn't see any limitation where I was looking at. I may be wrong, but it was looking for. I was looking at Intensifier, and it just references IFE. In the
SK rulebook,
in the SK rulebook. All right.
Two for plus 2 to hit DRM. Well, and if you intensify a IFE weapon, you're not rolling it to hit number. You're just rolling on the IFE.
Right, like an LMG and IFE, MG main armament may use SFF and final protective fire in the movement phase. And if marked with a first fire counter in the defensive fire phase, may fire in the first fire counter in the defensive fire phase and may fire at adjacent unit at firepower. Breakdown lower by 2.
Where are you reading? Where's that?
That's 6.8.
6.8, last paragraph.
May not form a fire group with other units, etc.
They do say like a machine gun, an IFE gun main armament may use subsequent first fire. So like a machine gun, so I would think it would be treated the same as a machine gun when using subsequent first fire or final protective fire, right? And would suffer same target restrictions.
Right, but can you final protective fire an IFE weapon? If I'm final fired, can you final protective fire the weapon?
Yeah, absolutely. If it's IFE, yeah.
I'm not sure.
That would be my impression because it says
but I'm
6.8 is using IFE. And
yeah, that's covered in under final protective fire. They even mention using a gun, don't they? They say you have to.
Well,
in fact, it's not even an option. You have to use the gun in the IFE. Yeah, it's the first paragraph under final protective fire. The unit using final protective fire must use all its firepower and usable machine gun (parentheses) or IFE, and may form a fire group with units not using final protective fire.
And in addition, related to what you were saying, Stu, middle of 6.8, IFE has a normal range of 16 hex. This is not considered ordnance. I think that's the operative phrase.
Oh, okay.
Like a machine gun, an IFE gun main armament may use subsequent first fire and final protective fire in the movement phase.
Mm-hmm. Where does it say not considered ordnance? Yeah.
If it's not considered ordnance, can you fire group it?
You may not.
No. It in the IFE part, it says you cannot fire group.
Right. Yeah. It just says right. It just says that by rule, and may not form a fire group with other units.
There it is. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Two sentences away, and I couldn't even find it. Sorry about that, guys.
No.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah, Intensifier is an odd ticket to the rulebook for sure. But
the big trick one is that if you don't have a rate of fire and you change your covered arc, that's the one that really caught me. I hadn't really thought about that one. Just
right.
Sort of blew through that line in the rulebook.
And most of those will simply be your artillery pieces. Just about everything else has a rate of fire of 1, which gives them that free load. But the artillery pieces are pretty much, you better be pointing where you're going to be shooting.
Some of your early Russian tanks suffer that too. The T-34 M40s and some of the KV-1, KV-2, I think, also don't have any rate of fire.
Right, but they're not guns, right?
Yeah, but that's what Craig was talking about. The ASL, starter kit rules as written today.
Oh, right. Yeah, it's true. That's true.
All right. Supposedly that is on the way, but for right now.
Yeah, it's not like someone can't just go in there and delete MA online to free on download.
I would if there's if I have a weapon like that or my opponent does for an SK game, I would gentleman rule sort of like, hey, there's this rule in starter kit. Would like to make it align with ASL and what we know to be the correct interpretation.
Yeah, I'm with you, Craig. As soon as I get with my game with Mark of S26. I'm with you 100%.
Yeah. As soon as I get out of my early war games. Oh my god, that's hilarious. All right. So anybody have any questions on the Intensifier, or any other questions for Craig?
Craig, that was a fantastic presentation. By kind of quick, and my steno skills aren't quite what they used to be. Is there any chance? It sounded like you'd had some crib notes put together. Is there any chance you could post? Would it be easy for you to post anything like that online somewhere?
Yeah, let me just
Play
put
aids.
it in the
There's a play aid section if you guys want, or I could just do.
play aids. I'll put it in. I'll stick it in play aids right now.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, sir.
It's just a Word document.
Sweet.
Finest kind.
And that's a common occurrence. So it's not something obscure. And those play aids like that are very useful and very helpful.
All right, it's there.
Sweet. Yep. Bing. Ping. Does it have any porn attached to it or anything like that, right? No. It's going to send me to a porn site.
Oh, wait a minute.
Intensifier. Sounds like a porn site. Doc XXX.
We have another WhiteHouse.com situation.
Oh my gosh. All right, cool.
Stu, by the way, looking at the ASL rulebook related to IFE, when using IFE, a weapon is not considered ordnance and is subject to sustained fire, not intensifier penalties per A 9.3. But it's talking about sustained fire penalties. I don't know if actually those are any different than intensifier penalties. But since it specifically says is not considered ordnance, that to me tells me I have to follow the defensive first fire rules.
The only thing that pops to mind in terms of ordnance are weapons that are need to use it to hit. To do damage, they need to secure to hit number, and IFE obviously don't do that. So I'll look into it even more, because it seems kind of odd. Think about it. It seems kind of odd that if I can intensify IFE 5 hexes away, and then you're moving 7 hexes away, and now I got to go to hit, and then boom, I can still fire on you, but I have to use it to hit. Versus IFE, I'm still firing the same bullets at the same rate. Right, so I'm not slowing down my rate and firing one at a time. Boom, boom, boom. I'm firing exactly the same rate.
Your effectiveness is considerably reduced. If you get that to hit, and then like the 40L.
Right. But your IFE is reduced, right? Your intensifier, your IFE value is reduced as well. So that's because it's first fired, and so I'll have to look into that a little bit different, because it doesn't make any logical sense that you are still firing your weapon at range. Although the infantry firepower equivalent of a to hit 20 millimeter is far lower than its IFE value. At that point, you're still, like as you said, it would be incurring pretty much the same principles of penalties. I'm still going to be +2 of my breakdown number, whether I sustain fire or subsequent first fire in our case, or intensify the weapon. The +2 breakdown penalty is exactly the same in both cases. One is going to extremely reduce my firepower, whereas the IFE doesn't exist. If I were to intensify 75, like an artillery piece, right? The IFE is going to be exactly the same. When I hit you, it's going to be +2 to hit, and then boom, I'm going to hit you, and it's going to have 12 firepower. So the firepower of that and any other weapon's attack is going to be exactly the same when they hit you, except for the infantry firepower. That's what would make me question exactly what they're trying to get to. So ASL kind of does that. I'm absolutely totally on board with that, because a lot of times if it says treat it as an MG, then you treat it as an MG. but
Right.
but they don't cower. They, without leadership, right? Because MGs cower, but
Correct.
guns don't cower, and so therefore it's kind of not treated as an MG sort of. So but it's SK. So it's well NSL as well. So it's been a while since I was thinking about sort of thing. So I may be completely off here, but
Well, it seems as if like IFE, as far as I know, really only applies to anti-aircraft guns. I don't know too many other guns that get IFE.
right, not many. Yeah, I think you're right.
Right. Yeah. I
guess there's the vehicles that have an IFE, but I guess those are like
those are all
mobile
guns, AA guns or things along those lines. But I think it's just something. I think they're just trying to kind of model something specific about like AA guns. I think and how they fire. It's and that sort of thing. So I don't know.
So that would apply the same thing with your like your armored cars with your 4 firepower IFE. If I fire, X number of hexes away, then I can't fire X plus 1 hexes away on subsequent shots with that weapon.
Well, yeah, but I think a lot of them, we had this just pop up with the German PSW 222. Back the counter, it says, hey, it's an AA gun to a certain extent that you can switch into AA mode, so you can fire at aircraft that are flying around, but it's still treated as like a turreted weapon that has a direction and you have to kind of turn it. It's not like on a 360 mount or anything like that.
Right.
But it does have an IFE number attached to it. Yeah, like a lot of the like the half tracks, late war half tracks, and those sorts of things with those triple barreled high intensity 50 cal guns and that sort of thing. I think they're just trying to mirror something about how the gun reacts. I guess I don't know, but through some semi-clumsy mechanic that we call it, intensifier versus sustained fire or whatever. So,
Right. Let's see. Hold on a sec. Well, I'll look it up later. I was going to get to something else today. It's something that it's something just technical, and technical things may take time. So I'm not, but yeah, absolutely a brilliant summary of the Intensifier rules. Very, very, very important to understand. A lot of players, like you said, probably don't play them properly, and the problem is most of the games they'll play with rate of fire weapons or weapons with circular turrets and things like that, and then when they run across that Russian artillery, usually it's the Russians or the French or some shit like that, they'll have that Russian 76 artillery piece, as we have in, well, no, actually that has a rate of fire as well. But typical artillery piece that doesn't have that rate of fire, when you spin it, it's that's something that you can easily forget, and it's understood that people forget it simply because it's kind of obscure, and it usually doesn't happen all that often. Yeah, like the artillery pieces in there's this piece here, and then there are two 105s in that SK scenario. What's the name of that one? It's not priority target. It's the other one, right? Dang it.
S12 over open sights.
Yeah, over open sights has got the 155. So the 155 would be incur the no intensive fire when you swivel that thing, that gigantic monstrosity, to blow the Germans.
I think that's the other gun that comes in. It's got the one rate of fire.
Yeah. So the brilliance of both of those scenarios, and I would love players when they play them, if they haven't played them yet, is to play the IFE one first, or this one first, and then play the other one second, because the weapons do behave completely differently in terms of essentially your freedom of fire and how easily it is to swivel those Bofors around and blow shit away. These things, when they hit, will just decimate stuff. The Bofors will just kind of shred stuff when they get a chance. But these bad boys, when they hit, they will punish you. They will punish you. So don't get caught out in the open. Don't get moving in the open when you have an acquisition on you by one of those artillery pieces, because it will destroy you, period.
Yeah, 155 critical hit. Not a good day.
Yeah, that's like a 10 to KA.
So, and I threw this German AA gun on there. I like this 20 IFE. That's just brutal.
Yeah, that's a monster. That's a monster. It's It's a nasty piece of equipment. Yeah, that's when you just drive up your tanks and shoot your tanks at them. All right, very cool. All right. All right, cool. All right, so if we don't have any other questions, we'll just go ahead and move on to kind of what I was going to go over today. I just want to jump through some of these scenarios here, and I want us to focus on victory conditions and how we can understand the victory conditions and to make sure we don't lose track of them, because it could be done quite easily. Sync's encouragement. These are I've just pulled out of my starter kit, Advanced Pack 1, 2nd edition, 5th rendition, 6, redesign, whatever the hell damn thing says. So if you have that pack, I'm just going to be thumbing through those, but I will be stating the victory conditions, and along with the victory conditions. I'm sorry, who? All right, so along with those victory conditions, they do not stand alone. Most of the time, you will have scenario special rules, which will essentially dictate how the game tempo could be played, or an odd thing that could come in there. And we're going to cover some of those things. So this is a sort of a victory condition quote primer, and B, how the scenario incorporates scenario special rules to make sure you are focused on the victory conditions. It doesn't apply all the time, but in some scenarios you'll see a couple hints on being able to perform as best as you can to satisfy your victory conditions. And one thing you have to understand is sometimes victory conditions usually apply to only one side. So it says, oh, the Americans must take building ABC, as we have in this scenario right here. This is one more hedgerow, scenario S42. Mark and I think I produced it, Mark. But Mark and I we had a tactical Tuesday, and I think everyone was on vacation. And this was done long ago, and we had a giant discussion. I think it was a very, very, very good discussion on scenario setup, what the Germans can do in this particular scenario. This is the scenario where the Germans have HIP status, and of course the introduction of hedgerows into the starter kit system, and things like that. So the one thing that we covered, and you'll see obviously in many situations, this scenario, the victory conditions are the Americans win at game end by controlling building hexes VVV, as we see here. Okay, so the Americans have 7 units, 2 leaders, a couple mediums. The Germans have essentially 7 units. Most of those are half squads. All but one are half squads, with a couple of machine guns. Okay, so again,
Yeah, what's up?
again, understanding the victory conditions. Where do the Germans need to be in this scenario? They set up on that red dotted line to the right. Where do the Germans need to be in this scenario?
Interesting. For 2021. Let's see.
Craig, you're unmuted. I think you're in a conversation.
Right. Ooh.
Yeah.
Really? What's her first name?
I'll just be quick, real quick. So where do the Germans need to be in this scenario for them to win?
They don't technically need to be anywhere for them to win, right? They just need to make sure the Americans don't get into those buildings, because they start with control of those buildings.
Right. And even if they don't start with control of those buildings, the Americans don't control the buildings. All right. So sometimes you may have a situation like that. It doesn't happen all that often, but you will then most of the time the defender will control the objectives. But yes, Tony's correct. You do not have to ever enter those buildings as the Germans. You simply have to prevent the Americans from controlling all 3 of those locations. Okay? So, which means you don't have to stack all your units in G5, J5, and J7. There are other very suitable defenses that you can have to stop the Americans from getting there. Again, in this particular scenario, you need to analyze what's going on. The Germans have 7 morale. They have a HMG, an MMG, and a couple LMGs. The leadership is minimal. Okay, so we're going to discount their leadership, but they have 2 weapons that have an okay rate of fire. But the key point that you might consider in your setup is the American. You have to not only analyze what you have as the Germans, but what the Americans have. The Americans have a 7 666 squads. Okay, so what does the American, and this game is essentially 6 American turns. What does the American have to worry about in this particular scenario? What's the prime weakness the Americans have in this scenario, other than them not knowing where the heck you guys are?
Routing.
There's 2 places I see they can route to, right? So for a bonus. I'm not saying they have to, rather for a bonus. Those are pretty much kind of going to be an LOS to most of those buildings anyway, so you may or may not want to go there. Also, they have a 6 morale. So if they're trudging forward, right, even your little half squads that are hidden somewhere that can fire adjacent point blank shots. So if they're moving and you fire your 4 even shot on the guy, you don't need much to as a result. If you get a 6, which is a 4 even shot morale check, most likely he's going to break. And if he doesn't break, then you have final fire at a 2. So you have 2 shots to break that 6 morale. Now, is he going to rally fairly quickly? Yeah, not too bad. But what will happen is that he will break faster, so therefore he will have less opportunity to dig you out of wherever the heck you are or try to find you in certain other areas. So the Americans' weakness in this particular scenario really is just simply sheer volume of troops. Again, this is one of the scenarios that Mark and I went over, and we went over, like, if you split 3 on the bottom and 3 on top, and let's say you break 2 squads on one side. Well, that's pretty much going to stop that American attack. And whether you break 2 on top or 2 on bottom doesn't really matter, because as you look at the map, the American has to be successful on both sides of the map, theoretically. He could come from...
I missed what you said about victory conditions. Was it take all 3 victory points?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Thanks.
That's okay. But as you see in J7, it's kind of a little bit lower on the bottom side, so it's obviously easier to approach J7 from the wheat fields than it is to cross all that open ground. Doesn't mean they can't do it that way, but obviously that looks like to be a safer approach. So therefore, you may have to split your troops up. Again, the plan is yours. The Americans come off board and they could do whatever they wish. Obviously, you could look at it and find tons of different ways to attack this. And, to be honest with you, an end around, like if you just go on the top side and just CX everyone up on that top side and then come the back side, and it's one of the strategies that Mark and I were discussing, and just, if you can set up like on the L row back over here early enough, you can use your American advantage of firepower just to blast the living shit out of everything in those buildings. And then guess what? Smoke, advance, smoke, advance. Right? Because who are we? We are the Americans. As soon as you say, I'm playing the Americans, the first thing that should come into your head is, that's wonderful, because now I get to smoke every single thing on the planet. Smoke. American smoke. So I just want to point out that even though the victory conditions here are the 3 stone buildings, that does not mean you have to set up in those 3 stone buildings to defend them. You know, it really irks me a lot that people, not necessarily ASL, but in other sort of instances where when they're defending something, they're behind what they're defending instead of being in front of what they're defending. You know, because, you know, if they're in front of it and they blast a couple Americans and slow them down by breaking them, then they can fall back. And as the Americans regroup, they come forward, blast them again, delay them. This is quite possibly a delay game. Or stay hidden so the Americans have to take it cautiously. If that's what their plan is, they could just bonsai through and scout out everything and then try and root you from your position. At that point, you're forced to fire. He's forcing an engagement at that point. Again, that's based upon how the American wants to play his game. You know, that is a viable possibility as well as a very cautious approach. Because he does have 6 turns in the scenario. Pretty much only has to go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 10 hexes. What's that? Assault move, advance phase, assault move, advance phase, assault move, advance phase for 5 turns, and he's in J7. So, and that's just assault move, advance phase. So that's, again, you don't have to be in your objective in this specific scenario in order to protect it. Let me load up the next one. S43. Let's go last. And again, I haven't looked at all of these. Matter of fact, I've never played nor seen many players play some of these scenarios. Okay, I'm loaded. Oh yeah, this is John's scenario. All right, I'm loaded. You guys, you can resync with me if you wish.
Oh yeah.
All right, we'll let John describe what's kind of going on here. Let me read the victory conditions. The Americans win. Again, the Americans win at game end by controlling all buildings on or between hex rows D and J in hexes less than or equal to 5. Those are all the V buildings. Even that little straggler up in the upper left. Couple scenario special rules here. Again, this is another one where the Germans may set up 2 multi-man counters hidden and record their hexes secretly. Prior to setup, the Germans record 2 hexes on which he places an artillery strike, sort of like Sink's encouragement, but they just kind of blow up. The way they do it here is kind of cool. 16 firepower, stone buildings again, not that bad. Germans here have essentially 4 squads, 4 to 5 squads, 8 morale. 1 squad is a 447. Leadership is very minimal. Support weapons are minimal. Americans are 747s, 10 minus 2, and that's, you know, that's about the strength of the Americans here. So 747s, 10 minus 2 means they're going to have an advantage since this is a very close in fighting. They're going to have an advantage in close combat. 6-turn scenario again. The Americans actually have to go shorter distance, but they have to capture a wide variety of numbers of hexes. That is a lot of hexes they have to move. So for that part, the Americans have to move into and through those hexes to control them. And again, having 2 multi-man counters, setting up hidden and building hexes, and the Germans set up anywhere less than or equal to 7, which is the red line. So, what are the problems that the Americans have to look at this one, John? When you guys were playing it, if you can remember.
Memory is going to have to really come through right now because I've got computer problems and I can't see what everybody else is looking at.
Oh,
so,
okay, my bad.
I
think so it's the War of the Rats map. It's the War of the Rats map, but essentially the Americans are fighting going the other way than the War of the Rats. Essentially, they're attacking across the street. And I remember the artillery blasted a couple guys. They were in that little War of the Rats building. Sorry you can't see it.
Okay, it just came up. So
there we go. Cool.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I remember that one. Boy, this was fun.
So what's some of the things the Americans have to make sure to watch out for in this particular scenario?
Number one, don't get caught in those fire for effect patterns, because that's 16 firepower on each hex, and that puts a hurt on you in a big way. Definitely don't stack, because I was playing the German in this particular scenario, and guy just he just kept coming at me with a couple of killer stacks, and unfortunately it came right through a couple of my pre-registered target hexes, and so it just didn't end well for him. As the German, one of the things that I had to do was making sure that I didn't set up any of my units inside a pre-registered hex, because that wasn't going to end well either.
Right. Now, as the Germans, where do you need to focus your units at? Do you think? In general.
Well, in general, obviously, you're going to focus it down here. He was I forget exactly what the setup criteria was, but he seemed to be coming in pretty big over this way. And so, knowing that he was going to have to capture the vast majority of these victory condition hexes down here, I set two target two registration points, I think, here and about here. And even if they drifted a little bit, it was still going to catch a lot of units, as they came in. And so I just basically waited until, he pushed into the victory conditions, and then let fly with artillery. I was hanging out back here in this larger building, and I think these three right here just conceded these, knowing that he's going to have to come through them. And I think I had one unit there just sort of slow him down as he was coming out of here. I think I had three artillery strikes, one here, and one here. And that, I think that was about the first or second game I actually was able to put in the win column. I like artillery.
Yeah, that was a fun game. I remember when we were going over that one for sure. And hidden units. Why should the scenario care about hidden German units? How can that affect the game here?
Well, as it is with any game, you're on a time schedule. You run across something that DMs one of your units. He's out for at least one turn, possibly two. And then you got to figure out how to deal with it. Is it one unit? Is it going to be two? Just where they're going to be at. And so anything that slows the schedule down, you definitely have to work through that aggressively, because that is an awful lot of victory condition buildings. And if you have a contested fight in each one of those, you're going to need all the time you can get.
Right. And the Americans only have 6 squads. So they have to fight through the artillery, potentially hidden units. They might be able to snag some units that are crossing that road. Again, we're crossing a road. We are playing the Americans. What are we doing 100% of the time?
Smoking.
You have to smoke across that road.
This one looks pretty rough for the Americans to me.
Right. If you don't smoke, it looks really rough. But once the Americans get in there, now the 10-2, what do you think the purpose / advantage of the 10-2 is in this scenario where you essentially have to go bug hunting? What do you think is the 10-2's purpose, just considering exactly what John said? You got OBA that's going to drop on your ass pretty much wherever, whenever. You've got hidden units that might be able to pop you, essentially snipe you when you're crossing the road in case you fail your smoke die roll and say, shit, I got to go anyway. Sometimes you got to make that decision. So what do you think the focus of a 10-2 unit in this scenario is going to be? Remember, the Americans have firepower. pretty much and America's advanced fire. Most of the shots in here in this little village are either going to be point blank or 2 hexes away, and that's it. So if it's point blank and you move your American 747, how much firepower does my 1 747 going to have against an adjacent unit in the advanced fire phase?
Against an adjacent unit?
Against an adjacent unit.
8.
8 firepower. So if I have my 9-1 stacked with that unit there, and 8+2 with a single squad, mind you, is a pretty damn decent shot. Because that's a 6 for morale check in the advanced fire phase. If you can happen to luckily get him with 2 guys, that's 16 plus 2. So do I necessarily need the 10-2 leading the charge, blasting building, necessarily blasting shit out of my way? Is it helpful? Yes, it is very helpful. But what's the one thing we do not have a lot of in this scenario as the Americans? We have 6 747s.
Yeah, you don't have a lot of independent units.
If 2 of our units break, which can be very common, I mean, the Germans do have a couple 548s and an MMG. They could pop you a couple times. You know, if you lose 2 units, that's 1/3 of your force. What can a 10-2 do? Considering the density of buildings there, once you cross that strait, you're pretty much not leaving that area for rally terrain. So the 10-2 can do what for us?
He can sort of act as a reconnaissance guy. He can run through the jungle and figure out where the bad guys are and possibly survive the defensive first fire shots.
Stu wants him as a rally point.
Right. Because we only have 6 squads and a half squad. The half squad is exactly what you're going to use him for, John. You're going to use the half squad. I didn't mention the half squad, but you're going to use the half squad to do exactly what you said, simply because we do have that 10-2 but we only have 6 units. The Germans pretty much have 5 squads and we have 6 squads, and we have to get them all out of this area and keep them off the area. So if we lose 2 squads, that 10-2 can rally any DM'd unit in a stone building on a dice roll of what? American 747 breaks. We have 2 broken units in J3. I put them on there. We have 2 broken units in J3.
And a 7.
Yeah.
If they're under a DM marker.
Yeah. Somebody break those guys. I'll grab the 10-2. There we go. Okay. This is what makes 10-2s a son of a bitch when you're trying to break lots of units. Okay, you broke these units. You're feeling happy as the Germans. This guy's back here. Remember, range of 2 is not bad. The 10-2 is not out of the fight. If we've got German units over on the other side, you know, pretty close. He's not going to be that far. You don't have to travel very far in this scenario. There's not a lot of traveling to be done here. So we got a couple of 548s over here, right? When these units rally, we're not very far away from the battle at all. So what do we need to rally these units here? So we broke in the American turn 2. We routed back here a hex or 2, right? Because we're not routing back 22 hexes. We're just routing back 1 hex. These guys aren't moving forward. These guys aren't moving forward because you're going to have other 747s there, right?
Yeah.
You know, so that you're going to route them into a spot, hopefully, that you can keep them covered. You know, it may not happen all the time, but let's say we got something like this going, and a couple guys move up here, and these guys came apart and they blasted them, so they routed back 2 hexes. You know, here is just fine. These guys are not going to get to those guys. This is not a situation that you're going to see. If you do see that, the German is losing the game. So the 10-2 rally these guys on a what? In the German player rally phase. I think Tony said it.
7.
Steve said it 7.
Yeah, Steve. 7. That's pretty stupid.
Crazy.
Let's say you roll 8s. American player turns, because he's not getting around here. If he is, he's taking shots from our big boys right here. That's 12 firepower anywhere. I don't care. And if he's going singularly 12, I don't care. So these guys rally on what now? In the American player
Think
turn
but a
3.
12.
Anything but a 12. 10 minus 2. These guys, if they break, they are down for 1 German player turn. And then they are going to rally. And what are you going to do with these units here?
Assault.
You're going to smoke. And then you do just like John says, smoke this guy. And then, hell, at that point, you can almost move them both up. And assault move, you could either assault move smoke or smoke and then move into that location. The choice is yours. This is kind of dangerous. That's 20 firepower. I would probably get him into this position. Why? Versus that position.
I only have 1 unit adjacent.
Yeah, this is a 12. This is a 12 plus 3.
Yeah.
Because why is it a 12 plus 3? Because I moved him back here. Why is that a 12 plus 3 when I moved him from this location? Because when these units smoke this location here, he's not going to fire on me when I move.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be 12 plus 4. And so he's going to wait for the smoke to dissipate and then fire upon me. He could technically fire at the 12 plus 4, but we don't care. That's a great chart for us. That means he needs to roll a 5 for a result. Against a 10 minus 2 unit, he needs to roll a 5 for a morale check. These guys won't even hear the whistles flying by. It just won't happen. That's a 10 morale and essentially 9 morale. Not even going to happen. So we want to avoid the 20 chart. The 20 chart is 2 columns higher than this 12 chart. So this is a hot spot. We could bait a shot there, but again, we're not going to go into that. But the point is the 10 minus 2, even though he's not going to be on the front line per se, when he breaks, he routes back with his units and rallies them. If he goes up here, do we want, let's say one of these units break and he goes back here. And do we want this unit jumping into close combat with that guy?
No.
Why?
I don't think there's enough squads to you want to avoid close combat as possible. Blow them away in advance fire.
Depends how desperate you are.
Right. But in SK, do we have an 8 to 4? What is this? A 3 to 2 minus 2? 3 to 2 minus 2. That's an 8 for casual reduction. You're locking up the one piece that keeps your force in the game. This guy's broken. 9 minus 1 somewhere around here. There's three American leaders. The 8-0 is not going to be rallying these guys fast. The 8-0 might also be used, just like John was saying, as a scout to clear out some of these areas and help that 337 move around. The 10 minus 2 can easily be locked into close combat with this unit. That's the one thing that the Germans want, because guess what? When these guys enter in these locations, that is now a 7 morale unit or instead of a, quote, 9 morale unit. That 10 morale leader is probably not going to break unless you roll really shitty in a stone building. And that's why you have to smoke to get him across this road. Yeah, obviously we got the OBA, things like that. But a lot of people think 10 minus 2, I got to put my medium machine gun with him, everything else like that. I don't give a shit about the machine gun. The 10 minus 2 is going to increase any firepower essentially by 2 charts. He doesn't need a machine gun because you put the machine gun on this unit here, he's got 20 firepower. That's plenty. He doesn't need 20. He doesn't need 20 plus 1. 20 plus 3 is a great shot. 20 plus 1, rate of fire. It's a medium machine gun. You want this guy keeping units alive, keeping units pushing forward, because if he continuously has good order units, the Germans simply lose this. Because like Craig was saying, that let's say you're desperate later in the game, then you start throwing these guys in close combat. You know, let's say you cleared out all the half squads except for a couple squads, and you know where all the guys are. Once you have all the information, then you can start doing weird stuff like this. Again, it's based upon you. But pretty much my focus is on the 10-2, and that not necessarily using him. You could use him as a focal point here. As you're moving up, you could use him to attack. But when they break, he goes with them because he needs to rally them. He could scoot here. And then these units can advance up later on. Because why do we care? If they break, let's see, where's he broken? So he's not broken. So this was a situation. These guys are broken. Except for the 10-2. Okay. 10-2 moved up, he got popped. He got a lucky, he rolled a 3 on the 12 chart, and we rolled, we rolled a couple 10s on our units. But the 10-2 was okay. Routes back. Can we still be DN for that unit? Sure. Who cares? We're going to need 7s in the German player turn. If he's going to stay there and prep fire on us and DM us, he's going to be broken. And he's going to rally much slower than us because the Germans only have a 9-1 leader. And if he's the one doing the rallying, I think they need 6s at that point. It's 6s. 6s over 7s is crap. 7s is the key point. If he wants to do that, we'll let him do that because we'll take the double 7s 2 turns in a row. And then we're up in the German player turn, and then we're going after that. But we are breaking a unit, and instead of him sloughing off right here, probably not going to break him with these 2 units, and then we go hex by hex, or beta shot coming this way, or whatever the case may be. At that point, I really, I want to analyze this there. But again, focusing on the victory conditions, we need to occupy all those hexes. Okay, we need to control those hexes, which means we need units alive to do that. If half our units are broken, and we've got a 8-0 back here trying to rally these sons of bitches, they're not going to get anything done in the game. Our 10-2 might be up here. Where's my allied OB? Where's my support weapon? Oh my god. Medium machine gun. Yeah, we got our 2 squads here. We got our remaining 2 squads here. Clone him. Let's clone one more. That's 3 squads. That's it. One more. Let's say we got this up here, and we got a shitty 8-0 in the back. All right. At this point, we can't really effectively attack anymore. Because when he goes here, then he breaks. Where's he got to go? Then he has to go back to the 10-2 because this guy is already loaded with units that he's got to rally, which he rallies on a 5. 5 or a 7? What do you guys want to roll? There's the 8-0. He got 1. Here's the 10-2. He got 1, but the 10-2 is going to get all of them next turn. So that's still shitty rolls. 9s and 9s you can't do anything about. We got to roll a whole crap of 9s there anyway. But the key is that the odds are, and the 8-0 is not doing his job, right? The 8-0 should be doing the 337 scout trip. He should be trying to find those hidden units that haven't popped up yet. He can move 8 movement factors. The 337 can be coming down the other side, trying to pop units with that because they're eventually going to have to fire on them. And then the bulk of your force is going to be here. The 9-1 can be up with the medium machine gun. That's not too bad, but the 10-2 has got to be rallying units because when these units pop up, so we failed here. Let's say we got 1 unit back in the American player turn. Now we have 4 units to attack the next turn. This 10-2 is going to rally everybody, guaranteed. And now we can do a whole shitload of stuff with these guys. Because these guys can do what? To help these guys out.
Smoke the defenders.
Smoke the defenders, right. One guy can come down here for 2, drop a smoke here. Missed it. Too bad. This other guy comes here, drops, smokes it here. Come here, bitch. There you go. Right? This may help our 8-0 get across the street. Let's say we would need to get over this way. We get across the street right there. Is he going to fire over here? Probably not. You got this guy here. Again, medium machine gun. If you move it, you can't fire it. You know, are we going to fire an 8+3? Probably not. 9-1 might be with him. 8+2 is a good shot. Again, just same as before. 8+2 is a good shot. We might want to move him up here and smoke this guy. 2, 4. No effect. So big deal. But now we still have our 3 squads. You know, we can move 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 4, 6. You know, 2, 4, 6 is a great spot right here. Why is that? I say we move 2 squads here. What type of attack is that guy getting? The advanced fire phase.
Getting 16 up 1.
He's getting a 16 up 1. This guy's getting a what? F3's getting what?
8 up 1.
8 up 1. Great shot. Pretty decent shots. Shots that you need against 8 morale units. Shots that you need against 8 morale. And this is after he's moving. So they can't stay here and duke it out with this guy. Not happen. So if you break these units, it doesn't matter. And he routes back here. It doesn't matter. He routes back a hex. What's he going to do in the next American turn? These guys are going to be rallied. 2, 4, 6. Do the exact same thing. 8+1. And he's eventually going to beat these guys back. But we can only do that when we continue to rally the units that these guys can potentially break. Okay, these guys are vulnerable. They don't have the leadership modifier that the other ones have. So if I were the Germans, I would try to break everybody else but the 10-2 stack. Because that -2 modifier essentially makes these guys 9 morale. Very difficult to break 9 morale units in stone buildings. Very difficult. These guys are more vulnerable. So you have to get them when you can. So again, I've already spent too much time on this. But again, it's not a problem when this 10-2 routes back. Because next turn that you're going to take more buildings, you're going to rally him. And again, turn 1, we moved him back. Turn 2, we're going to move him back again. And what are we doing throughout the interim? These guys are creeping up beside us, side by side, cleaning everything up. And then this guy, the 80 and the 337, are making sure there aren't any hidden units that are going to be coming behind us. That's going to take our units here. At this point, we may have to leave a 747 back here in case we're not making really good progress in clearing units out and things like that. That is the concern here. And for you to clear all these buildings out and clear all the bugs, when you go on the bug hunt, you need units. And 10-2 make sure you keep units in the game. Make sure you, and plus the Americans have to fight those OBA, like John sets out. John's smart to set them out down here because that's where he's got to go anyway. You know where he's going. He's going right here. Wait till he gets there and blow the shit out of him. You know, that's where the 10-2 is very critical. So again, a lot of people like to use their -2 leadership, stack up the 16, 20, 85 firepower charts. You don't need a -2 leader on a 24 chart. You just don't. You just don't. This guy's purpose is to make sure that he can sustain units in the front line, and if they can't make it, he gets them back up there the next turn. You got to get those guys back up for the next turn. And that difference between a 6 and a 7 on that rally, whether you put the 9-1 with him or the 10-2, is a world of difference. This guy is still potent. Again, this guy very potent. It's still a -1 in case he wants to jump you in close combat. You've got a -1 right there. You know, you've got the -1's not spit a 9-1 leader, especially with the 9-, especially the 9 morale 8 -1 leader. Not as effective. Why? Because our 9 morale leader is going to pass most of his morale checks. Right? Normal morale check, he rolls an 8. That just gives this user unit that -1 leadership modifier. 9-1 leaders are very powerful in this game, simply because they stay alive that much more often than your 8-1s. 8-1s are great, but they're going to be broken a lot more often. Probably 2 to 3 times as often as your 9-1s. In my opinion, my feeling, my history of 9-1. The 9-1s are great. So, oh, sorry. So let's clear off this one. I like the scenario because it was John's scenario, and I got some fond memories of that particular game. So we'll close this one. We're gonna zip through the next one here. This is our fun one here. Okay, gotcha. And again, with this is one that we've done before. You guys, some of these are not unknown to you. This is contested settlement. Okay, I'm loading it up right now. Give me a second. Okay, my map is loaded. Okay, the contested settlement here. Victory conditions. Very similar to the other ones. The Poles win at game end by controlling one or more multi-hex buildings. So the defender has a number of units, 12, essentially six squads, 6 half squads. The attacker has 10 squads coming on and 2 squads on a flanking force. Okay. So, and then the defender can set up anywhere here. So, knowing that we have a flanking force, as we went through the description of many of these games before, the Slovaks can't simply set up forward because the flanking force comes on and essentially just wins the game. So they have to be tricky in their setups. So in this one here, we've got 2 victory conditions that are 1 hex, essentially 1 hex off the board. I mean, that's about as tight as you're going to get for the Slovaks. You don't really like these buildings. They're too damn close. These are the fun ones. You know, it's harder for him to get to, but these buildings can be very difficult to deal with. So we've gone over the security on this one here, but again, you only need 1 building. So the defender pretty much has to either channel your attack, which may not be feasible, right? Or make sure that you are broken early. Again, that's the scenario special rule. No Slovakian squads and no more than 4 half squads may set up on north of hex row CC. Okay? So, because things like this you have to look up in your thing. Don't just think, oh, okay, I've got a Poles win by controlling 1 more buildings. Okay, I'll just set up everybody in the woods, in the back. I'll set up right in front of the defense, right in front of where he needs to get to. It's a 6-turn scenario. Again, same as the other ones. 6-turn scenario. Exact same conditions as the other ones. The guy's got to control one of the buildings or all the buildings or whatever. The opposing player has to control these buildings. What's the easiest way to win the game by denying control of the buildings? What's the one thing you really want to try to do? Especially since you're outnumbered. Let's say you're outnumbered 2 to 1. You're outnumbered 2 to 1. If he gets in those woods and it's mano-y-mano, remember like we covered in son of a bitch, where is it? The one that I skipped. Damn it. Sink's Encouragement. 7 American squads, 7 German squads. Mano-y-mano there, right? Here, you're outnumbered 2 to 1. So what does the attacker simply have to do? 2 to 1.
Just try to overwhelm you. Just trade squad for squad, and he'll win.
Yeah, squad for squad. Squad for squad. Free victory. So, this is completely different than Sink's Encouragement. Sink's Encouragement is, it's 7 squads to 7 squads, and the conditions are such that those victory hexes are kind of difficult to get to. And this one here, you've got a flanking force coming on as a defender. You don't know where he's coming on. So there's that. That in and of itself makes this a more difficult scenario. Scenario special rule should slap your face in denoting that no more than 4 half squads. They give you 6. No more than 4 half squads may set up on north of Hex Row CC. What do you think those half squads are designed for in this game?
Be somewhat impolite. Roadblocks.
Roadblocks. Roadblocks. Because what happens? What's the purpose of a roadblock? What's our problem as a defender? We already covered it. What's our problem?
You don't have enough squads to trade off.
Right. We're outnumbered. We're outnumbered 2 to 1. If we could have roadblocks in the front, what's that going to do? It slows him down. It simply just slows him down. Do we care if we lose those half squads? If those half squads, if each one of those half squads, mind you, so we have 9 total squad equivalents. He has 10 total squad equivalents on the map, and then 2 more coming on. So if each of those half squads, the 4 half squads, let's say we set up 4, you could set up 1, 2, 0, I don't care. If those 4 half squads were to set up and delayed 1 squad, right? So we would have 2 squads out of the battle. He would have 4 squads out of the battle for a determinate point of the game, because our defense is going to be spread out as well as his. So let's say we break 4 squads. What does that do for us? Specifically, what does that do for us? What does the defender have? What does the attacker have to do in order to get those squads up and going?
He's going to need to keep his leaders behind and continue to slow down the force.
Right. Again, he does not have a 10-2 leader, and they are not American troops. Here, you certainly need to know that your nationality distinctions means that if you break as an XS minor or allied minor, your morale isn't going to be quite as good as you think. Let's see. Let's see if these guys are different here. Allied minor squad. We got I think a 4-5. I don't think the 4.58's reduced. It's been a while. I'm kind of hazy. Nope, no, they're shit. So here's our elite squad. Here's our 4.57. And here's our 4.37. All right, let's break these guys. Good troops. You know, I love them. I love playing allied minors. But what are we looking at here?
Yep. Yeah, backside morale's down by 1. Yep.
Right. We have and as the attacker, we have a 9-1, an 8-0. Let's say he breaks up here. Let's say he breaks in the middle. And we've got 2 guys broken down here. You know, we got lucky. You know, and our guys die. Our half squads are dead. So I'm just the worst case scenario, we lose our half squads. Okay. Okay. This is how it is, because roadblock, right? We don't need 5 roadblocks in one spot. He just runs around us. That's not a roadblock. He simply walks around us, as you've seen in all the replays here. I think this is a fantastic game. But so let's say our elite unit breaks up top, our first line breaks in the middle, and our conscripts break in the bottom. Well, in this case, you obviously see, instead of my big ass head in the way, you obviously see that these 6 morale units, it doesn't matter whether the conscripts are first line. So those are garbage units regardless. And we want to rally these units as quickly as possible. Let's say we maximize our rally potential and send our leaders back, which may or may not be able to be on these units. And that brings us to another point we'll get to very, very shortly. So these guys are not 10-2 Americans. So you must not treat them as American units in terms of ability to rally. So the risk that you can take as the Americans in the last game is far different than the risk that you could take with these units. Okay. During the opponent's player's turn, because he's going to break us in our turn, and we're going to attempt to rally in the bottom half of player turn 1. the Slovakian player turn 1. What do we need to roll on all those units? Top to bottom. Our 458 breaks. What do we need to rally him in the Slovakian player rally phase?
4 if he's in rally train.
5 if he has the leader.
5
5
with
if
them.
he's got. Yeah.
5 with the 9-1. 5 with our best leader, mind you.
Yep.
That's absolute shit. Second guy, what do we need to rally him?
3.
Complete shit. Bottom guys, same thing.
Yep.
These guys are not rallying. Okay? Get rid of our DMs. God damn it. My focus is off. I don't even know how to remove DMs. So, DMs are gone. Beginning of our turn. What's our rally up top?
Looking at finally something like a 9.
Okay. 9's not
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah, 9's not too bad.
Next one.
7s.
7s.
7s for the rest of them. Yeah,
9s and
7s,
7s. We're going to get about half the 7s. All right. We're probably going to get the 9s. We're going to get probably 1.75 squads back. Or maybe 2.75 squads back. Maybe 2.5. So we're getting 2 units back. And then the other guy, you know, let's say if we get this guy here, and then we get our bad boy up top. Okay, what does that do for us as the attacker? Is our mobility maintained to continue the attack?
Not
Not really.
yeah,
You're right.
push ahead.
Not
but,
really. Yeah, we
you
could.
still got squads straggling behind.
Right, the 9-1, 458. They're moving forward. 437's probably going to catch up. But these are all of our leaders. These are all of our leaders. These guys are catching up. This guy's broken here. Now, as an attacker, how long do we stay back here? How long do we stay back here? Routing these units. 7s and 7s. We're going to get one of them. Okay? We get one of them next turn. Now we move forward. That's turn 3. Out of 6. Turn 3 out of 6. This guy's going, this son of a bitch down here. Of course, he's not going to be DM'd. He might be up early. He might be, more than likely, this guy's almost, I would say probably an 85 to 88% chance that this guy's up by turn 3. Simply because he won't be re-DM'd in the Slovakian player 2, turn 2, and we'll have our rally phase in turn 3. The point is you only have to break these units. And using that, identifying that scenario special rule, which allows you that ability, just like the last scenario, hidden units. He has to search us out. What does the American not have? Volume of units. He's got to make sure he does it safely. Units here, these 457s. We lost all 4 of our half squads in breaking these units. But what did we gain? Almost 2 turns of non-movement by these units. So he lost 4 squads for... he lost almost a third of his force for a turn and a half to 2 turns. So that's the key. Again, this is the same, pretty much same victory conditions as the other scenarios. Control a building, right? But the OBs, Thompson, your mic is on while you're typing. If you can mute for
Sorry about that.
That's okay, no problem. So you might think that, okay, this scenario is control a building. This scenario is control a building. This scenario is control a building. But as you've seen so far, and even in Sync's encouragement, which we didn't even cover today, control buildings. But it's the OB and it's the scenario special rules that you have to look at and understand. How does this scenario differ from the other scenarios that I've played throughout my ASL career? They're all control shit. They're all control. This one, outnumbered 2-1. Sinks encouragement, even numbers. The second one, short volume of units, and you got to capture everything. Completely different situations. Here, do we need any units to survive to win this game as the Slovakian defender? Do we need any defenders alive at the end of this game?
Technically, no, as long because you've got control of all the buildings at start, and provided the pole can't get into one of the buildings, you know.
We
know.
Yes, we don't need to be alive.
Right. Yeah.
We don't even need to be on the board. If we can delay them enough to pop a couple units, and we lose again, we lost the equivalent of 2 squads. All 4 of our half squads that we set up here, are gone. I just removed them. I essentially said at the end of turn 1, they no longer exist. Obviously, a couple of them are going to break and route back. What does that give us as a defender when they break and route back?
Ideally, it's more roadblocks.
Or roadblocks. You can't move through our hex.
Yeah.
What that means is if you could have a roadblock down here, you might have to go in open ground around me. Or if I roadblock right in the middle, you got to go up this hill, which costs you 4 movement factors. A full turn of movement. You're going 1 hex and then advance phase the next one. Or CXing, 4, 6, advance. And then guess what? When you finally make my defenders, you're at long range and you're CX. So all my guys are in buildings. Which means you're not going to be able to soften up the defenders quite as easily. So the roadblocks can work. Will it work all the time? Obviously not. It won't be. That's why you roll dice. But noticing that we broke 4 units with 4 squads, maximum 4, 4 even, whatever, we're all snake eyes or whatever. We got subsequent first fire and all that shit. So some players did have an effective defensive fire when they had up there. Some players didn't. It's just rolling dice. But the point is we don't need those units to survive. That's not their purpose in the game. Their purpose is not to, the victory conditions did not say anything about the 4 half squads that you sent up in the CC row must survive and they must occupy one of the buildings. It did not say that. So we don't give a shit. So make sure this is another situation. Scenario special rules, victory conditions. All right. Let's go to the next one. Let me know if you guys are getting bored. Please. Some of these
Always a good refresher.
Yeah, some of the victory, it's huge. It's so huge. It's I don't even know it. I haven't even seen this son of a bitch. All right, this
no boredom here, Stu.
Okay. I haven't even seen this one, so let me see. This thing's screwed up here. Okay, I'm sorry, this is S46. I don't know if I've seen anybody do this one. This is interesting. Okay. You know what this looks like. All right. Load up. My map is ready. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I've seen anybody use this one. So, okay, we go. Even better. Perfect. Good. Good. Where the winter lingers, scenario S46. Board Q. You're using just kind of a chunk right in the middle. Looks like a decent sized map. Fun little map. We've got the Germans. 7 squads set up on west of row L. Oh, they don't even have oh, yeah, there it is. On west of row L, which is a good thing about this, which is why I love these pre-set up scenarios, is that they kind of have the setup. West is to the left. So essentially to the left of that line. The Germans set up 7 4-6-8s. Excuse me. If someone could pick up a couple of 7 4-6-8s, that'd be great. And then if someone could pick up a couple 4-5-8 Russians as well, that's great. All right. So victory conditions, and I'm going to go over another small little detail here that's very important. The Russians win. Thank you. When immediately upon exiting at least 7 victory points off of the west edge, which is the left side, the blue side. How many points is a squad worth, gentlemen? Victory point wise.
2.
2. How many points is a half squad worth?
Go with 1.
1.
Yeah.
1. How many points is an 8-1 leader worth?
1.
2.
Yeah, 1 plus the leadership, essentially the leadership modifier. So all leaders are 1. If you have a negative modifier, it's another point per negative. So a 10 minus 3 leaders are worth how many?
Well, would be worth 4.
A shitload, yes. A shitload. 2 squads worth. So this is kind of what we got going on here. So Germans, no more than 1 squad per hex for the Germans. So I just kind of threw them on the board. All right. It's simply an exit victory conditions. This is a 8 turns for the Russians. 8 turns. Decent length scenario for an SK scenario, but lots of ground to cover. You have 7 Germans, and on turn 4, you've got 2 Germans coming on over here. Okay, and with a 7-0 leader LMG, pretty inconsequential. But you pretty much just have a ragtag force. You got 1 medium, 1 9-1 for the Germans. Not really too worried about that. You have 14 units as the
Russians. Yeah.
Russians. That is a shitload, especially when they're force 5/8. Oh, is that 12?
At 12.
Dang, I got 2 more.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Out of these Russian units, oh, by the way, there's a 9-2, 8-0, and 7-0. I don't really care about the support weapons. So
That single light machine gun is lonely. Let me tell you.
exactly, right? It's frozen. It's frozen solid. Jesus. So we got a 9-2 fat boy up top.
Yeah, that's gonna make all the difference.
8-2, 8-0. Okay, gentlemen, what is the 9-2 for in this game?
Rally.
What's he going to do for us?
Rally the broken. Push them forward.
What's the 7-0 and 8-0 purpose in this game?
Keeping
Keep him moving.
Leader bonus.
Given
Leader
the movement
bonus.
bonus. Yep.
Right. Now, yes, the 9-2 can be used to throw some units up front. Shoot 12, because this could be 12 even chart. Excellent chart. These are 4-6-8s. These are German 4-6-8s, which, if they're in the village, are going to get hindrances from this. So these are essentially going to be stone buildings. You're probably not going to be back. If they're back here, it might be. It's God. This looks like an interesting goddamn scenario. But what don't we need to be doing as the Russians in this scenario? What is the last thing we want to do in this scenario as the Russians?
Prep.
shooting.
We just want
to. I would say
Close combat.
Yeah, close. Well, the one thing you could possibly do is a little bit of close combat, but if you're getting close, that's pretty tight. Close combat only into, from my perspective, you want to go into close combat. Why? Let's.
I'd use it to get a 1-to-1 odds and hopefully end up in melee so that German units tied up and then all the rest of the Russian units can run by.
Right, right. Especially if you can get in close combat with that medium machine gun, because they have one. Okay. Obviously, you got to get to them, but if the opportunity presents itself, it's a 1-to-1. Maybe even throw 2 guys in there, just to see if maybe you can kill them or something like that. But if you're going to be using the close combat to tie them up so everyone else can get by them. Now, if you had a shitload of guys right here, right, and you're moving down this way, do we really want to go into close combat with this unit right here? Do you see the tactical difference? If our guys are moving down here, Right. We got our 9-2. Let's see. 9-2 is make his way in the middle. Does a close combat in this tactical situation here do a goddamn thing for us?
Not much.
Not much.
Well,
Why?
it ties him up so he can't shoot at you when you're moving.
Right,
down south.
but look at the volume of units. Let's say we want to cross this ground over here. How many shots are we going to get along this road? How much residual is going to be placed down here with this setup?
Too much.
A lot. It's going to be covered anyway. All this is going to do is tie one of our guys up. But if this guy's up here, maybe this guy's here, and we have an opportunity to jump either him or him, we jump him in close combat in a situation for something like this, how does that situation change?
Effectively taking out 2 squads with that close combat.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. 1 squad takes out 2. The number of games is winning for us, especially if we've got this. At this point, let's say we have this right here. We just stack them up 2 by 2. There's no way in an exit scenario you're not stacking up 3. You probably don't want to stack up 2. If this is our push, okay, I might consider this. Put your 9-2 down here. Why? What are we going to be doing here? Okay, it's a Russian turn 3. This is the situation. We've got a couple guys up here. You probably want to have a delaying force. Let's just say we're like this. And a 7-0 back. 7-0 is not even in the line of sight, so we don't get broken. If we have this, what are we doing to this unit in the prep fire phase?
Well, I don't know if you have to shoot at all. You could run somebody towards him and get blasted and run everybody else around.
In this situation, when he's got 1 shot, we're not doing anything in the prep fire phase.
Right. Well, right. So you could move 1 guy up then in the movement. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Because exactly, we can either we don't want to go adjacent to this guy because we need to use that. So all of our guys going to be coming through this open area here. As we're moving, let's say he fires and fires, so he leaves 2 residual. This guy breaks. This guy breaks. Okay. That's what happens. This guy's final fired.
I'd run 1 guy right by him and see if he shoots at him. But anyway.
No. He is shooting at him. With 8 morale, you are shooting at these Russians.
Right, but he'll only get 1 shot, and then he can't shoot at these.
No. Initially, I would maximize our chances. I don't want to take an 8-2 because he can actually get a kill on you. It's not likely, but he can get a kill or a K result. 4-2, less likely than an 8-2. Remember, 8-2 is another 2 columns up. The worst that's probably going to happen down here are breaks. If we break here, where are we going?
Forward.
We are going forward. We are taking interdiction and we are going forward. Because our 9-2 is doing what in this situation? If this was a situation, and let's say 3 of these guys broke here. 4 guys broke. And then these guys, just by virtue of movement, this guy's back here. Let's say a leader may have made it with that guy. These guys are moving. Oh no, we're gonna keep this leader back actually. And we got something like this going on. We got our little human wave going on. So, what's this 9-2 going to be doing in the movement phase? Because you have balls. What is he doing? How is he getting there?
Well, now that you've final fired, I guess, I mean, if you're going to try to get there, you're going to have to, take interdiction. You have to take a 1-2 at some point.
We're running right through that 1-2 residual firepower because this guy's getting here. I don't care what situation. If this is the sort of situation that you're looking at, and it's an exit victory condition game, although you have time, he's going to have reinforcements coming on turn 4. This is probably turn 1, turn 2, turn 3. They're going to route forward. Turn 4, you might make it here. Then he's going to have guys coming up here.
Right. Well, and again, for this particular scenario, I have played this once. You're going to have to read like, the rules that are going to affect you are going to be, SSR 1, because moving in open ground is going to cost you an extra half.
Right.
Okay. So that's going to slow you down crossing all that open ground. And then 4 is really weird. Basically, both sides are so tired. Nobody gets CX in the scenario at all. Okay, so you're not moving. Okay, so you're not moving. You don't have 6 MF, except during the route phase, which is interesting to know for those people who love forward routes. That is interesting. It is an interesting thing. But starting at turn 4 and later, you have to start making morale checks for everybody who wants to move. You have to start making task checks, and that can slow you down even more, So it gets pretty weird, especially about turn 4.
Thanks for those details, because I didn't bother reading scenario special rules.
So you definitely want to read SSR 4 very carefully.
So even with that, knowing that you cannot CX, and knowing that you have 8 morale, because you have 8 morale. These are not the miners from the previous game that have 6 morale that are going to get shredded when you take interdiction. We need 7 points. Exactly how many units do we need to get off the board in this game? What is the minimum units that we can get off the board to win this game immediately as the Russians?
2 squads and the 9.2.
Yeah, the 7-0, the 8-0 leader. Yeah.
2 squads and the 9-2 makes 7 victory points.
Okay, yeah, you can do it that way too. Yeah.
Okay. When we break, what does that give us? Now, mind you, we want to break here and not here. Why?
Right. Well, yeah. If you break there, then you got to go back to the woods. You got to go back. Yeah,
right.
You got to go back.
We want to make it here. And if you don't like the 2 factors, send another son of a bitch in there. He breaks. Send another guy in there. He breaks. We got 2 squads left. They just kind of hang back here. Is this a bad situation? And this is the situation here. All these guys break.
I mean,
Okay.
they're all going to get into the building. Obviously with German, you might want to keep them DM as much as you can, try to keep them down. But you are closer to your goal. You've definitely crossed a lot of ground in a turn.
Right. This is the end of turn 3. Hopefully, maybe 4. Let's say it's 4.
2. Would you overstack any of those with the leader? Or you leave them separate?
We can't overstack in SK, right?
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Right. But so are we in a bad situation here with 6 broken units stacked up in the Hotel 6 over here?
Well, at the moment, no. I mean, there's only 1 unit that can fire on them. I mean, that especially if that close combat's still continuing.
Right, that one's going to continue for a while, most likely. Right, most likely. He could fire in DM units, absolutely. Yeah. Then we got an 8+2 on him. He's firing a 4+2. All he's going to do is do DM. What do we need to rally these units with the 9-2 leader versus the 8-0?
First turn, you need 7s, even under DM.
7s under the DM. 7s under the DM. Okay.
Then next turn, it's going to be an 11.
7s. If he DMs 7 or 11, they're coming up. This guy, he might not survive. He could possibly survive to keep them DMs. But again, we're rolling 7s all the single time. We're going to get 1.5 of these squads up. So if we get 2 squads up by the beginning of the Russian player turn, because we'll have 2 chances. Let's just say there are 2 of them. Why isn't it selecting those? So we got 2 of these guys up. Where are these guys? What are these guys going to do?
They'll probably keep moving forward.
Yep. Why are we moving forward, Mark?
I'm sorry, which one?
Why are we moving forward?
Because you got to get them off the map.
And what slows us down a shit ton? The scenario special rules.
Right.
The snow, the no CX. Okay? Once we hit
And
those woods, it's only 2.
Starting in turn 4, you have to take a task check.
Right.
If it passes the task check, it may move normally. If it does not pass and is not CX, it may move but is marked CX. Although it does not receive the additional movement bonus. So basically you're tired, so if you're trying to shoot or whatever,
Right.
you know,
Right.
can shoot. If it is already CX, it may not move in the movement phase. If it fails this task check by more than its ELR, then it breaks.
And again, knowing the scenario special rules, our ELR in this scenario is 4, very high for the Russians.
Yep.
So that's another thing you have to worry about. Do I care? Am I going to ELR when I'm running out in the open? I get broken with that 4-2 shot. He's going to get a 1 morale check on me at best. Am I going to ELR with a 4 ELR in this situation?
Almost certainly not.
Almost certainly not. We're almost immune to ELR failure in this game. Considering the Germans can't stack, I think they have to stack against one another. They could clump up later, sure, but our ELR of 4 is very high with an 8 morale. It's unlikely that you are going to fail ELR. So our morale level will most likely stay at 8 the entirety of the game. You have to know this before the game begins, not halfway through and realize, shit, oh, I'm running out in the open and I have an ELR of 1. All these guys are going to be turning into conscripts in like a half a second. A half a second. So 9-2's got to keep moving, rally these units. We only need the 9-2 and 2 of our cronies off the map to win the game. Okay? That's all we need. That's all we need. So the point is with exit victory conditions, we don't want to break and move backwards. Obviously, if there's guys over here, we probably don't want to move forwards or whatever. We may want to move forwards. I don't know. If he brings down juicy targets, he may bring down more squads to kill all these broken units. And then it might give us an opportunity up here. Again, 9-2, 2 squads, or 3 squads, and any one of the other leaders. Okay? Leaders' mobility, squads aren't going to be moving very fast in this scenario. So it's critical to keep moving forward as much as possible. If you're routing back in this one, it's a tough day. You better be taking interdiction with 8 morale in this game. You just have to be. You just have to be, because your mobility is extremely slowed. Okay? So again, victory conditions seem very, very, very simple. Get off the board. 7 points. So what? That's easy enough to do. I got 55,000 squads. He doesn't have much. Oh yeah, by the way, you can't CX. You got to roll task checks. Hexes are 1.5 movement factors. Yeah, you're moving pretty damn slow. That's why it's 8 turns. That should be another clue. I'm moving 1/3 of a board and they gave me 8 turns. What kind of idiot designer is this? You know, there's a reason why there's 8 turns in this game. You know, so again, 9-2, very key in getting units up and moving. Also, another thing the 9-2 does for us, once we reach this forest line over here, and let's say he's brought a couple of units down, what does that give us if we're desperate? That gives us a much
close combat punch.
Much more efficient close combat attack dice roll. 2-1 is 2-1 minus 2 is very favorable. 2-1 minus 2 is a 9 for CR. Hopefully you can roll an 8. Because you're going to be rolling 7s to rally everyone, you have lots of practice rolling 7s. Just keep rolling those 7s, and the 9-2 will vaporize everyone he jumps on. It's possible that he may die. That's going to hurt. But you just want him moving forward. Keep him on the edge if you can. You know, you don't want to be taking a 16 chart on this guy. He's not a 10 morale leader. He can break. This is not bad. He can break there, and then he's going to do whatever routing he can, and then the 9-2 can either move closer or just move over here. No one's going to be jumping next to the 9-2, all that willingly, and not get shattered with a 16-1 shot there. This guy's simply going to break, and the other units that are coming up from behind are going to be destroying these units. Anybody that breaks in these woods are probably going to be eliminated for failure to rout. Because the Russians are just, at that point, the Russians are just swarming these sons of bitches. If they outnumber them, you swarm them, and just hopefully your morale can go through. If you're desperate for time. But your assault move in advance phase, you don't care about those point blank shots, because if any of these guys break, they're goners. This guy's a goner when he breaks. This guy's a goner when he breaks. He's, risks. You might not want to go there because he's going to prioritize this shot over any other shot. Especially if it's your turn, because if you're broken, then he has to break this unit in order for this unit to survive. This is not a bad spot if you've got guys that are supporting him. Okay? This is a priority break for the German. Why? Versus these guys. Let's say this guy breaks him, and that guy breaks him. What does the Russian have to do in his turn in order to keep these units alive? Are these units dead? That's the first thing you have to know, because guess why? We moved them, and during the movement phase, what are we thinking about?
Route.
Where the hell we're going to route to? Can these units route with a break in those locations?
They may not. Well, let's see. From where we are right now.
This is defensive fire phase. This is defensive fire phase. First fire. They break in the defensive first fire phase.
Right.
Can they route? Are they going to be eliminated in the route phase?
FTR. Both of them.
Remember, this is the defensive fire phase. That was a clue. Defensive fire phase. They break. What do we have to do as the Russians?
The Russians are going to have to try to break both of those. If you break these, then nobody has to route.
We have to break these units.
And the Russians don't have to route, but
well, do they? Let's say we break here. Now, why is that? So if we break him here, and if we break him here, why are we not eliminated for failure to route?
The Russians are not because they are not because they're not adjacent to any unbroken or good order German units.
Unbroken enemy units.
Maybe unbroken. Yeah.
Unbroken enemy units. Do you see the difference in this situation? Let me move these DMs. We know they're DM'd. Okay, this is our out phase. This is a very important concept. You have to come to terms with. Okay. You have to come to terms with this, because in your games, you will have situations where your units are going to be stuck out literally in the cold, very much like this scenario, and they will be eliminated. You must identify that they can survive. You must identify to give you an opportunity to save them. Best case scenario, everyone breaks. Who dies at the end of this route phase?
At the end of this route phase, presently, it looks like the German is the one that's in trouble.
Both German units are eliminated at the end of the route phase. Why?
They can't move and not be adjacent enemy unit.
Right. First of all, they have to route because they are adjacent to unbroken Russian units. So they have to route. And they cannot route, and then they cannot successfully route because wherever they go, they will still be adjacent to a Russian unit.
Right. Do you understand the distinction that we're looking at in this precarious position for both sides? Simply because, again, this is the importance of knowing whose turn it is, who's routing first, etc., etc. We do not have to route because these are not unbroken enemy units. We can stay there ad infinitum. We can stay there ad infinitum. This guy These guys do not affect this unit's route. These guys, the unbroken ones, that luckily broke him, I don't think they would, but this guy might be broken, this guy might be eliminated. But still, 1-to-1, we can do 1-to-1 in this scenario because we have a 14-to-9 ratio. We win at 1-to-1. We win at 1-to-1. But these guys, you must be able to identify and recognize that the Germans will be eliminated and the Russians are fine. Your opponent may not realize that. You know, he might be here, right? He may have broken him here and subsequent first fired here. And then let's say he subsequent first fired here, pins him, but you move up, you know, a couple more squads here. He's going to be taking a 12+1. On average, what's that going to yield? A 12+1. Let's say he pins here, so it's going to be 14, so it's going to be irrelevant. Breaks one guy, pins the next guy. You move other guys up. He chooses not to final protective fire. That choice is his defensively. Nothing's wrong with that. That's a decision that he has to make. Maybe he thinks he could sustain a 12+1 shot. That's up to him. That's a tough spot there. 12+1. You're forcing him to make a decision here. Do I fire to, quote, give myself a better chance to survive? Because if I break, if he is an intelligent SK player, he understands that he cannot afford to break here. If he breaks, essentially, do I give the dice roll to the Germans or the Russians? Or if I could break one of those units as they move in, especially if one guy moves in there. Now, do I fire at 4 even? Let's say we go 2-4, right? 4 even. Do I fire that to leave 2 residual? What does 2 residual do for us? Of course, there's a residual here as well. The next guy going in there, free shot. You don't have to final protect the fire there anymore. The 2+1 or 2 even might do the job. The 2 even might pin this unit. Right? You might roll a 6. A 6 is a solid roll. One of those, you're gonna get a result out of one of 2 units moving in there with the 2 residual. That's just the average. There we go. We got a 1 morale check and a pin task check. That's the best thing we could hope for as Germans. Let's say they both pin. Right? Again, for 1 final protective fire shot, these guys both pin. How safe are we now from this stack? Let's say one guy didn't pin. What's our safety factor now? You're going to be sustained. You're going to be taking how much firepower at this location?
It's going to be 2, 4, 8.
8+1. Right?
1, yep.
8+1.
Yeah.
He needs to roll what for a morale check?
7.
7. He's going to roll 7. What do I need to pass that morale check?
An 8.
An 8.
And an average round, because 7, 8 plus. Yeah, rolling a 7 and the 8+1 will be a normal morale check.
Right. So I've got a better chance of surviving than he has of actually, you know, damaging me. Now that the pin is there, and that's because the 2 residual. That's what you have to decide upon as the German player here. Do I final protect the firepower once to get that 2 residual in there? I have an 8 morale. If I pin, do I care? It's not going to affect my defense in close combat. What do the Germans care? What are the Germans trying to do here?
Slow them down just enough.
Slow them down. Well, first of all, if we pin one of them, let's say we only pin one of them, 2 jump to close combat. That's 2-to-1. He needs a 7. So say he rolls a 7, gets a CR on me. He's not moving in the next Russian. Right? Well, he might kill us in the German player turn, obviously. But let's say he doesn't kill us, and we just go back to evens, 2-to-1 next turn, and then he casually reduces us in the German player turn. He's not moving in the Russian player turn. You're slowing him down. Do we want to lose all of our units as the Germans? Probably not. But it slows 2 units down. It slows 2 units down. These pins are going to help us defend. The pins are defending us against being broken, which is essentially an instant elimination. Okay? But you're going to have to risk a break. Is it much of a risk? We have 8 morale. There's not much of a risk there in breaking. There is risk, but there's not much of a risk from what you have. I don't want to be faced with a 12 plus 1. Because a 12 plus 1, what's he needed for a morale check? If he rolls a 7, what's he going to get on us? On the 12 chart.
It'll be a 1 MC.
1 MC. What do we need to pin? That's going to be a 1 MC on average. We roll a 7 on average. We are going to be pinned. Is the German, is the Russian at this point pinned? Since we didn't fire on him. We said, fuck it. I'm not going to, I don't fucking final protective fire. Screw that. I've got 8 morale. I'm not going to final protective fire. And he pins us. Because that's what he's going to do on average. On average with a 12 firepower shot. I don't even count this guy. This guy forgot to fire. I'm not even counting him. I'm just looking at 12 firepower on him. Well, this guy's pinned. Sorry. Okay. Do you see the distinct difference between one shot? If we pin, again, we don't care if we pin. What did we do when we pinned a couple of his guys? Stopped him from jumping close combat. Now what's the Russian going to do? 100% of the time here. What's the Russian going to do 100% of the time at the advanced phase?
Gets one squad? Yeah, probably. Yeah,
yeah, we're going in.
Yeah.
He pinned one of our guys in the last scenario, in the last situation. Now we got 3. Shit, 3 to 1. He's certainly not going to kill us at 3 to 1 because it's a 1 to 4 shot. And he's pinned. So that's 1 to 6 to even attack our guys. He's not going to injure us. But now we have a 3 to 1 versus a 2 to 1. And we need an 8 for casual reduction. He will be dead in 2 close combat phases. Most likely. So he's dead anyway. He's dead anyway.
Mm-hmm.
He just doesn't know it yet. So final protective firing in a situation like that, yeah, you could break. Absolutely, you could break. But guess what? You could possibly break him. You only need to fire once to get that 2 residual firepower in there. And then every single guy moves in there, you get that free shot. Remember, residual firepower is an infinite rate of fire LMG. That is an infinite rate of fire LMG for every single time those guys jump in there. And then a leader comes in later. He gets popped. You know, whatever. Pins. Pins are easy to roll. You sold the 2 rolls I made. I mean, I got lucky. Let's say I got lucky one of them. One of the guys' pins or breaks. You know, one was a 1 morale check. The other was a pin task check. I didn't even roll. If we break one guy, then shit, then if we don't die, he has to back up. What does the Russian not want to do in this game? He doesn't want to go backwards.
Yep. There you go.
He doesn't want to go backwards. Can we rally him? Sure. He doesn't want to go backwards. The scenario special rule says you're eating up tons of movement factors going through the snow and task checks and all other bullshit that Mark pointed out. If you break, that's a good. This could be a winning condition. This could be a winning attack. Again, why do you think the Germans have 8 morale in this particular scenario, even though the Russians are curtailed with movement? The Russians need 8 to get the hell across the open ground. The Germans need 8 to final protective fire to essentially make up the number loss. Yes, some of them are going to break. They're going to break. That's going to happen. But the difference between not taking this shot here and taking that potential break, maybe they made the difference between a survivable close combat to a I'm going to be eliminated. It's as simple as that. And shoot early. If you're gonna final protective fire, pull the trigger early, not late, to maximize the effectiveness of your residual firepower. If you see a whole bunch of units come in this way, can they divert, go across? Absolutely. If they take more time going north-south, that's a win.
Hibernate. Winter got warmer.
So that's what we're looking at. Again, if both of these Germans break, they both die. Our Russians break, they don't die. Why? Because we know we have to come up here with our 9-2 and a shitload of guys right here to try and force these guys to break. We might get one of them. Probably a 45% chance of getting one of them. A 1-to-1 exchange or 1-to-2 exchange. At this point in the game, you might be okay with it. Again, this is just hypothetical, but I'm just telling you these are situations that will show up in your games. Units will break. We're not going backwards. That's not the way we win this game. The game is not to control this building. The game is to get the hell off the board. If we're moving backwards, if it works to control the building, yes, we go backwards, rally, come back, attack again. Go backwards, attack. Go backwards, attack. We get off, you go backwards twice, those guys, you might as well just flick them off the board because they can't get off. There's no way in hell they're going to get off if they break and route backwards twice. None. They're dead. The Germans just killed all those units. These units screw around up here, fight Russians, fight Germans all day. They're all dead. If these guys are here at turn 4, they're all dead. The Germans just run backwards. There's no way these guys are getting off. They're all dead. And then everything converges on our troop down here in this sort of situation. So exit victory conditions, you have to understand point values of units, and you have to understand what you need to do. You need to continue to move forward. Fire only when necessary. Jump into close combat right here in this situation here, because it will reduce the number of firepower that we're taking for the rest of our units to move forward. We can't stop everybody. We can't stop everybody from, even if this guy were here, you jump on close combat. Well, I mean, these are going to be 4-2 and then 2-2. We still have 8 morale. If we pin, not a big deal. We're still alive. We're still that 1 hex more forward. But you have to keep moving forward. You have to know where you can route to. You have to know that even if you break in this precarious situation, that it is not over until the route phase, because you could still move units up in your movement phase because you had planned on some of these guys breaking. You could still move units up in the movement phase to try to rectify that situation. You relied on your 8 morale to get you through the situation alive. It didn't work. Now we have plan B. Now we got to go up there, punch this bastard in the face. 9-2, punch him in the face. Are we attacking this guy or are we attacking this guy? This guy's a priority. Even if this guy's in the open, this guy's a priority. He keeps this guy alive. We may not be able to save them both, but that's what we're looking at. And then this sort of situation here, if we make it there with our squads, okay. Move DM. If we make it to this situation with our squads and we fail this attack, this guy survives. Okay? These guys are advanced fired. This guy's alive. This guy's still broken. First of all, this is the beginning of the advanced fire phase. Who do we fire first? And why? This is the situation right here. Who do we fire? Who do we fire first and why?
Don't you want to shoot here to here to break them?
What difference does that make? Why not fire here?
Prep fire.
What difference does it make which unit I fire at? I'm going to fire at both of them anyway, right?
Right.
What difference does it make? Order of fire. We fire here. We get no result. What happens to this unit?
Oh, it's dead.
It's dead anyway. If we fired the 9-2, it broke this unit. Fired these guys here, failed to break this unit. What happens to this unit?
Dead.
Dead anyway. How can we change the situation to get the most out of this? If this guy fails, and this guy fires first, because if he fails, this guy is going to choose a different target. Who is he going to choose? Yes. Why are we going to choose this target? Why are we choosing that target?
Well, I guess you can go buy him then if you DM him.
Well, possibly. That's a little bit of future, a little bit short term. Why do we want to choose this target right here?
You're gonna kill the other guy in close combat.
Exactly. This guy's a 4-2. Very good chart. Essentially, it's an 8 equivalent. Our average roll is going to be what? 7, right?
7. There's be a 5 on the 4. Yeah.
Right. So it's going to be a 1 morale check.
Yep.
So he needs a 7. He can fail that, right? But the 43% chance or whatever, good chance to fail. Then what do we do to this little bastard here? Again, that's where you use your -2 advantage, because we know we just lost 2 units down here because this guy didn't break. Now we've got to make sure this puts us slightly behind the 8, not necessarily behind the 8 ball, but the 8 ball's rolling in our direction. This guy breaks. He's not going to rally because you've got a sizable force to keep him DM. It's very unlikely that he will rally. This guy, we have a good chance of first of all, a good chance of ambushing. Why?
A -2 for the -2 for
Yeah.
on your ambush roll. Yeah.
Shit, even I can ambush somebody with a -2. Look at that. There we go. Even I can ambush somebody with a -2 leader. It increases your chances of killing him in close combat. Obviously, the risk is still there to lose him. The risk is the same. The best defense that a 9-2 or 10-3 leader in close combat is going to get is stacked with 1 squad. That's the best defense he's going to get. Obviously, if it's a 7-4-7, it's pretty damn good defense. But if you're looking at 4-5-8, that's a 1-2. He's always taking that 1-2 shot against that -2 leader every single day of the week. Every single day of the week. That's 5 victory points in 2 units. And then these guys may actually go in close combat here. And then his entire force in the bottom's gone. You know, simply because you lost the opportunity, or you did not succeed in breaking this unit here, which at least saves this unit. Because if this unit has to break first, and then that way the 9-2 has a choice. This unit has 1 target. Remember? He has 1 target. Take the easy target. He can't fire at anybody else. He goes first. This guy can make 2 different targets. There's a difference. Just like we outlined. We can break him and kill him within 2 to 3 phases. By the end of the turn, this guy's dead and this guy's routed to this location or that location. And again, if I was him, I'd interdict and get the hell out of there. Or you could stay there. The Germans probably don't. Technically, you could try to block that, but whatever the situation may be. But in this case, you need to switch targets and then take your losses and kill these guys in close combat. And that's 1-1. And if we have a 1-1, technically we're kind of like 1.5-1. He's lost 3 squads and we've lost 2. We're way ahead of the game because we started ahead of the game in the initial anyway, 14-9 or 14-6 or whatever the case may be. So 1-1's okay. And that's kind of what we're looking for. We wanted to go, 0-2. Both of these guys could have been killed, and he's been sitting there by himself, and he's going to be killed later. Obviously, that's a great location. But even worst case scenario, we lose both our squads, and we exchange. That's a win as well, because we still have the points within the vicinity to get the hell off. Obviously, in this person, but you need to make sure, you need to be aware of what needs to happen first. And if A does not happen, then sometimes you ignore B. and B becomes C. C's a better target. C's a better choice. Okay? You might be fixated. I don't want you to fixate on having to break both of these units. You have to understand that this guy at least saves 1 unit. And then he'll die. And this guy, is going to be dead if he can't move. But that's fine. You have to understand that not even at that point, you had your plan laid out to attack. Even at that point, things can change. Keep your options open. Options must remain open for you to maximize your effectiveness. And a 9-2 can affect the board really well. Really affect the board really well. So, I wanted to cover a couple more, but I think that was actually a good array of scenarios. Many of their control scenarios, but we saw the difference between the different types of control scenarios and the OB and how the scenario special rules are integrated in those scenarios for us to determine effective strategies into trying to maximize our chance of winning. This is an exit scenario which differs completely from those other ones. You need to keep moving in these scenarios. You need to know exactly, before you even set this thing up, you're reading those scenario special rules 10 different times as the Russians, so you can fully understand how you can move and how long it takes you to get off the board.
Yep.
If you fail to do that, you've already lost the scenario and you're just rolling dice. You must walk your units through a theoretical game. 8 turns. Where can I expect to be here? How many troops can I expect to reach this point? Given a throw Germans on a map defense. Where can I expect to be? Can I engage in any of these idiots? I don't think road bonus even applies either. I think I skimmed that. You have to fully integrate the scenario special rules into the victory conditions and into your OB. I cannot emphasize that enough. There are thousands of ASL scenarios. I don't think many of them are identical whatsoever, simply because your OB is going to be different. Your nationalities are going to be varied. We've gone through 3 different nationalities here on the attack. We've gone through Americans, short number of units, high morale, high leadership, high firepower, smoke. Miners, shit morale, shit leaders. They had the numbers, but they're not moving. You break in, you're staying for a while. You really got to organize and manipulate your rally points far more effectively with the Allied miners than you do with the Americans, because they're not even self-rallying. You could leave an American of 666 by himself. He breaks. I don't give a shit. 2 turns, self-rally, boom, 8, you're up and going. Russians, elite Russian units here, very powerful units because they usually have the numbers. Very powerful leader. 9-2 is very rare in Russian OBs. But you must integrate the movement detriments, the movement restrictions you have here to overcome the German defenses. And because you've got to use your morale to get through the open ground. You're not fighting the Germans in buildings. He wants you to do that. Because where can the Germans go when you break him? He backs up. He just simply backs up.
Right.
And then you rinse and repeat. Game's over. Game's over. It's as simple as that. But you have to, in this scenario, you have to move through your hypothetical situation of my units are moving forward. Okay, 3 guys get broken, guys go forward, broken, forward. How many guys do I expect to get at the end if I just simply move everybody forward? And you lose 3 to 3 squads per turn being broken, and you don't route them forward. So you have to plan for that. You have to plan for that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's I think we'll leave it at that, gentlemen. 8 o'clock is good enough. I went longer than I wanted to. I'm kind of exhausted, to be honest with you. But I just, we need to revisit victory conditions and the analysis of who is playing the game. When Allied miners are playing Allied miners, it's a shit fest either way. First one to break loses pretty much. You know, in elite units such as this, 8 morale, we don't care who breaks, they're rallying. You know, it brings different expectations to the game. There are different expectations in each of our scenarios that we have to face and realize before we move forward with our strategies. Once you realize what your troops are capable of, then you can maximize those capabilities. You may not succeed, but you have to be able to maximize the capabilities of your units. Failure to do so gives your opponents a huge advantage. Knowing that you have 8 morale, run across that open ground like you're running across the freaking playground at school. It doesn't matter. Even if we casual reduced, you got to roll a friggin' 9. I mean, good Lord. A 9 to be casual reduced. If you're running 4 units across, you're going to fail 1. One guy's got a CR. That's just average. The other 3 guys are there. We just lost 1 victory point. Who cares? That guy's still 1 VP. Keep moving him. Hell, at that point, that guy just... At that point, the German, it's like, it makes it actually more difficult for the Germans. Like, well, do I let the 1 VP go by because he can surround me? Or do I want to try and break a 2 VP unit? You know, it actually can make it more difficult on the defender when you start getting half squads. Because you know he's less likely to fire upon them. Well, if all your guys are half squads, they're all getting off. You know? It's as simple as that. But the scenario special rules, again, they can be very subtle. Do not overlook them. Do not overlook them. They are there for a reason. Whether for just simply scenario balance, or many times they will give you scenario strategies. Like in Sync's Encouragement, 467s have a die roll of 3 for smoke. I've never seen that before. Never seen it before. But it helps the Germans get across the road so they don't have to be shot at a -2. It gives them cover to go across the road. So therefore, are your 467s going to be the first units the Americans going to engage? Probably not, because if you lose that smoke making capability early, you will not have the opportunity to get those units that break across the road, or to get those units that have to advance. Obviously, the breaking won't make a difference because the smoke will be gone. To get those units across the road when you need to. And as we discussed in that scenario, that copse of buildings on that left-hand side, extremely defensible situation. So if the Germans can get there via the use of smoke, you know, I mean, envision 2 units on the opposite side, 2 467s over there. They both throw smoke. Now you're looking through +4 hindrance. I don't care. The Americans could be out of range anyway. 9 -2 leader, I don't give a shit. Fire. You're still going to be +2. It's going to be 6 +2. Who cares? It's not going to affect me. I get across the road. Come get me, Americans. You know, understand what those scenario special rules can give you. If you don't, reread the victory conditions. Look over the map. Topography has a lot to do with your victory conditions. Look over where he's coming on. What can I do here? What can I do there? One of the scenarios I played recently, I had a mortar in my OB. The OB was such that pretty much it was in the middle of the goddamn woods. I can't see shit. There's nothing I can see on the map except for one specific location. So guess what I did? I put him up there and created a defense around that particular mortar. And I pulled my vehicles up, put my vehicles up with the mortar to give them support, because the mortar is overlooking a whole shitload of woods. And when the mortar overlooks woods, the enemy dies. That's as simple as that. And that's why I hinged a portion of my defense in defending some of the victory conditions there. So, because I had no clue what to do with it. I couldn't hit anything with it because too many hindrances. There's nothing of value for that to do other than just to throw it away with all the other units. But up on the hill, it can dominate half the map. It seems to be out of position, but with lines of sight, understanding lines of sight, it can really dominate parts of the map. But it took me quite a while to be able to envision that, and then envision a defense. Okay, it's up there. How do I keep it alive? Okay, multi-tiered thinking you guys got to go through. Please, the next scenario you go through, think of that. Think of that particular scenario. Across the border is one of them. For 2 seconds, across the border is one of them. They have 4 tanks. If you destroy one tank, if you don't destroy any tanks and they get off the board, he captures 1 building. If you only destroy one of the 4 tanks, he has to capture 2 buildings. So the math in that one is, if you destroy 1 tank, he must control 2 buildings. If you don't destroy any, he only needs 1 building.
Yep.
That can make a huge difference in that game. And multiple tanks beyond that are just icing on the cake. At that point, I think if you destroy 3 tanks, he's pretty much screwed. He has to control all buildings then. So that could be a very pivotal, very central, and very key point to that specific scenario. You know, a very specific scenario. Not everyone catches that. Simply losing 1 tank causes the capture of another building. It's mandatory. You would think too, oh, it's 2 points. No, simply just work the points out anyway. But please, when you guys look at scenarios, just take more time. Say, why is scenario special rule 2 in there? Why is there groundstone? I don't give a shit. Who cares? You know, that's the first thing I question. Why is there groundstone in the scenario when it's all in level 1? You know, there might be a gully, there might be a hill, you know, or something like that. Why is that scenario special rule in there? How does it tie into the victory conditions and my OB and my enemy's OB? How does it do that? And once you could figure that out, then you can say, how do I use that to my advantage? How do I overcome that if that's my defender's advantage? And once you start seeing that, once those lights will pop on, oh, I could set up 4 half squads up in that area, but nobody else. What does that do for me? As Mark points out, roadblock. What don't they have? Time. What do they have? Shitloads of units. I can't defend against 14 squads. I can defend against 8, but I can't defend against 14. And my units aren't included in the victory conditions. So, therefore, they're fully expendable. As long as it's part of your plan, as long as your plans are going according to plan, whether you win or lose is irrelevant. Once you've succeeded at your plan, that's the first thing you do. Victories and losses are irrelevant, because once you start deciphering these puzzles, all the scenarios are puzzles. They're all puzzles. Once you decipher the puzzle, you can then master using the techniques that we guys have used here, our routing, our subsequent firing, Craig's inclusion of Intensifier, close combat, all that bullshit that we're going over. Once you've deciphered the scenario, you pull your tools out, you put them on the board, and you simply beat your opponent. You simply beat your opponent. And you will see it occur very often. Very often. Or at least you'll be very confident in your ability to beat them. And as long as that confidence does not wane, you have the advantage of the scenario and not your opponent. All right, thank you, gentlemen, for joining me this evening. And I hope you guys have a very pleasant week.